have a mute on.
Yeah.
And you'd be like going, Larry, you have the mute on.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't
I'm
do.
on time, but I was dozing and listening to the dulcet tones of Mahler utterly destroy the marbles.
I mean, Longman has done yet another good addition to the canon of let's make a review of a movie that's longer than the movie.
I mean, it's only 3.5 hours,
Yes,
but
but that's longer than the Marvels.
no, there's actually a. We're gonna get right into it. No, there's actually an interesting permutation of why I am so glad I skipped that movie. Did you watch that movie? I don't remember.
I did, and I reviewed it for this show.
You never mentioned, to the best of my memory, either that they turned Captain Marvel into a Disney princess, which is not in the
I
comics.
I mentioned that they turned Captain Marvel into a Bollywood character because that was the
Right.
musical sequence. It was a
That's the thing. Is
Bollywood
that
sequence.
that maybe I memory hold it. Maybe the damage was so bad, but seeing it without having to hear it while watching Mahler describe it, the fact that there is a Bollywood sequence is so beyond the pale in terms of bad. And there's a further permutation of this. So
They
I'm
also cast a Korean pretty boy actor as a quote unquote romantic lead for Captain Marvel.
no, that's not it at all. Although that is certainly bad. So I'm gonna do I have to do the evil. I have to hold people accountable to their claims. How dare I? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at this and my brain went, wait a minute. The planet is called Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's planet Aladdin,
Mm-hmm.
right?
You didn't notice that from the architecture?
I didn't know until I saw it. And then I saw it and I went, so you're telling me this is Agrabah, right? This is non-specific Mid-Eastern fantasy planet
But with a lot of ocean
with a lot of ocean.
and with the
And,
ethnic diversity of your average Ivy League school.
right, and then it's all SoCal. And then it's got a heavy dose of Bollywood, presumably because they want that Bollywood dollar, right?
Well, no, that's actually more connected to Iman Vellani. They're like going, "Hey, we have this, Pakistani Bengali actress. Like, what if we had her, like, connect to her roots with a Bollywood movie? Even though that's not how Bollywood works, y'all."
Right. No, it's I mean it's broader than this because again, one of those things that you've seen, and it's one of those things that I am shocked that people like to go off on is people will say, people will say like, how did we go from Phantom Menace in 1989 and Revenge of the Sith in 2005 to what we got now, and then people will just brazenly say we put a woman in charge, and I always think that that's bullshit because there's a lot of hands that have to move through to get something stupid,
Well,
right?
also there were multiple
But
women in charge of the
right,
Marvels.
but but at the same time, it's like, well, every time I have seen a Pakistani or Hindi director get the big boy chair, male or female, they're just like, can I put a lot of dose of the subcontinent into this?
Well,
And it's
no.
like,
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. The director wasn't Pakistani, nor were the producer, nor were the writers.
they just happen to have an actress of that descent and said, let's go all in. And
Yeah,
she had nothing to do with it.
I mean, she probably thought it was cool because
Sure.
she's that kind of a
But
person.
but what I'm ultimately getting at is that, as you may recall from a recent commentary I made, one of the brazen accusations is Orientalism,
Hmm.
right? Orientalism is bad. It's wrong to look at foreign cultures as exotic and magical, right?
Hmm.
This movie, done for the women, this feminist screed, which was neither feminist nor good, right? Is the most racist movie.
I
God,
mean,
it was dripping in the
I
things
mean,
that they were saying you're not supposed to do,
don't
right?
forget Brie Larson's directorial debut, The Unicorn Store, was a very racist movie on multiple levels.
My God.
Wait, you don't remember the Unicorn Store?
I have never seen, but I'm
You
just shocked
did.
at the
No, no,
notion.
no, 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 no. You did. You saw it when it came out.
I did.
You did.
Me, okay.
We talked
When
about
was
it on
this?
the. We talked about it on the show when it came out.
Yeah, but did I actually watch it?
Yeah, you did. The
Okay.
fun part about the Unicorn Store is it has magic Negroception,
More magical Negroes. I
where Samuel L. Jackson is the obvious magical Negro because
what
he.
the what the fuck is wrong with the African American community that they all think they're magical now?
Well, hold up, hold up, hold up. So the
No,
Unicorn Store,
no,
right?
this is just the fourth time today I have heard the idea of magical Negroes.
Well, I
So
mean,
I'm
it's a very popular trope, and
yeah.
let's not forget there was that one magical Negro movie that ended
No,
up
I know
bombing
that.
recently.
I remember
But
that. I
like,
remember that.
so the Unicorn Store, there was a magical Negro played by Samuel L. Jackson. He was magical both in being the magical Negro trope, and he also controlled a store where you had were able to get access to unicorns. Although he didn't actually give you a unicorn, he used the unicorn to help you fix your own problems in the ways of a magical Negro. But Brie Larson's character also had a magical Negro boyfriend who helped her fix her house and her things because he went to Home Depot and he helped her fix her problems and that helped her fix her problems in her family.
Okay.
And it was also incredibly racist against Asians in general and Asians from the subcontinent specifically.
See, this all just stands out to my brain because the basic argument seems to be that racism is wrong unless we do it. That it is our turn to be hyper racist, and I don't
Well, no,
think that
no.
was ever supposed to be the goal.
Well, no, no. You see, in the context of anti-racism, racism isn't bad. It's the intent behind the racism that's bad.
I don't care because I know that actual words have actual fucking meanings.
Well, yes, but when you're a communist, you invent new meanings for words, and you enforce those meanings with violence, as happened yesterday.
Yeah, no, I actually almost got in an argument with David yesterday or today, and I abstained. I wisely decided to just let him pass with his stupidity and not get involved.
But yeah,
Um,
but yeah. So Brie Larson has a weird tendency
yeah.
towards racist projects, especially when it's racism towards South Indians.
Even
It's
though
really
racism's bad, no matter who you do it to and where you point it.
well. I mean, if you're a white male and you support the patriarchy and capitalism,
I'm just old, Larry. That's the answer.
yeah, yeah. So what else did Mueller's review of the Marvels spark in your brain?
Oh, basically something that we've that has been talked about before by other people at great length, which is that through a combination of half-told story beats and failure to land, not only do they make a mess of their film because they do not adequately explore any of the concepts they put forward,
Mhm.
right? So, as a for instance, Mahler pointing out that the whole every time we use our powers, we switch positions is really badly used because the way that they parse it is that this happens every time in an organized fashion.
Except it doesn't.
Right. It would be so much easier if it's just like, look, we have an instability we don't understand. So we don't even know when we're going to switch if we use our power, so we shouldn't. Right? Right? They never do
Mhm.
that. So it doesn't work. But then the idea that all of this leads to ostensibly presenting Carol as a villain, right?
No,
Um,
no, no, no. Everything that's descended from Kelly Sue DeConnick's version of the character is a villain,
right.
unironically.
But but here's the thing: is that as I was listening to Mahler describe this, I again realized that this could have been fixed with one simple adjustment that they never made. that no one, to the best of my knowledge, in any version of Carol Danvers in comics or film has ever made.
Okay. Okay.
So Carol's basic thesis after several rewrites is that she is a former airwoman, right?
That was actually a retcon.
Right, that's what I say, after several rewrites. But here's the thing. She's an airwoman.
Mhm.
Different services have different problems, but one thing they all share is this idea of lengthy deployments, right? If in our general shared language, if we talk about soldiery, right, usually ground pounders,
Mhm.
and we talk about them being deployed for long periods and missing their families, nobody
Mhm.
blinks, nobody has a problem with it,
Mhm.
right? If you talk about sailors, you say, oh yeah, you're on the ship for long periods and you don't get shore leave and you miss your family, nobody
Mhm.
blinks. Nobody knows what the fuck the air service does, so we don't realize that they have some of those same problems.
She also wasn't for real Air Force in the movies.
Right, she was just a test pilot. But that's the thing, is that if they actually leaned into the idea that Carol was in the air service, that they had actually explored and emphasized this idea, and then you said, okay, well, she's a space adventurer now doing space adventure. Where was she for an extended period of time that she wasn't here to take care of Monica or interact? They could have ameliorated a lot of the very obvious and practical accusation that she's a fuck up,
So
right?
Rune,
By basically saying she would have loved to have come home, she wasn't able to.
Rune. Here's the
Yeah,
thing. You know how there was a lot of content about what happened while Carol was missing on Hala in the
yeah,
Kree Civil War she started?
yeah.
That was the original idea for Captain Marvel 2. And they spent a lot of time developing that idea. So instead of just writing off all that money that they developed, they incorporated it into what became the Marvels, even though it didn't make any sense with a plot that incorporated Monica and Kamala Khan.
Wow. This also, by the way, and I'm sure this is a retcon because they don't want to use various things from comics. This entire piece also makes Kamala Khan even more pointless,
Mhm.
which is unfortunate for the actress because everyone, I think almost universally, everyone agrees the actress playing Kamala Khan is innocent in all this, and it's not her fault.
Mhm.
Uh, I had recalled the part from the show where apparently she got her powers from a djinn, which is already kind of offensively dumb
Well,
because
especially considering Jin aren't native to the Muslim culture of the Indian subcontinent.
right, and her characterization in comics is not magical. She's not a Doc Strange character. She's at best a mutant,
One of the
right?
retcon her into being a mutant because they wanted her to get in some of that sweet Krakoa heat
Right,
when she was starting to
right.
decline.
But that's what I'm saying is that she got her powers through Terrigen Mist bullshit. I guess that would make her eternal adjacent, maybe
Inhuman.
inhuman. Yeah, but still, the point is she's a science character, even if that science is Wibble, not a magical character, right?
Well, right, but in the MCU, because they have to be compliant for the People's Republic of China,
Right,
their magic is actually extra dimensional bullshit, not magic.
right, right. But then, but then, it's like no, no, no. It's magic, but it's magic on an alien bracelet that ended up on Earth. So she's both a Marvel cosmic character now and a magical character because her plot only works if an alien bracelet fell in the hands of a human wizard who did a wavy on it.
But the problem is that the Jin they're using is a retcon of clandestine from the comics.
Wow, that is a deep cut. Even I don't know what the fuck that is.
Okay, so they came up with clandestine. I don't remember the original reason for it. So it's
Okay.
all based around Adam Destine. He was a Anglo-Norman crusader. Got involved in some misadventures during the Crusades. And a djinn was involved. He and the djinn fell in love. And when a young boy and a creature of smokeless flame love each other very much, they start a family. And she also gives her lover powers that he is capable of dealing with whatever he wants to deal with. And they're a secret bloodline of people with superpowers in Marvel Comics.
Wow. Okay.
I, I mean, the comic is fun. The characters are fun. It's
Right.
interesting,
It
but
sounds stupid from the outside, but that could just be because it's Marvel's adjacent in this conversation.
right, right. So they decided to repurpose the hey, wasn't there a character who had sex with a djinn once and had a bunch of kids? What if we make that Kamala Khan?
Wow.
But we can't make a djinn, so it's just an extra dimensional alien.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let's use that as the example. Because again, Orientalism is bad, right?
Mhm.
Why can't a Jin be a Jin?
Because then you can't show that character in China.
Right. So this is a China problem, not a storytelling problem.
Well, it's a storytelling problem if you want to tell the stories in China, which you
I-
do because of money.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. As you say, Jin are not a native folkloric element to the subcontinent. Fine,
Mm.
right? So you tell the tale of how this starts with like a storm, with a crash, with an accident, with a traitor, with a mysterious stranger, right? And an object from a faraway land was brought to the subcontinent because that shit happens and
I mean,
ends up
sure.
in the hands of an individual.
Well, I
That's
mean,
all.
sure.
You know, if you weren't trying to pander to a Chinese dollar that's not gonna be there,
And pander to people from India. Don't forget
who
that part.
well, right, that's the thing. It comes back to we're gonna pander to India. Why are you pandering to India?
Also, they're pandering to Muslim people in the U.S.
Right, but here's the thing. Let's walk through this. The number of Muslim people in the U.S. might be a growing number, but it is a drop in the bucket compared to the total population of America, most of whom won't give a shit. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go, okay, well, we're appealing to Bollywood because Bollywood's a very powerful movie making industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except just like trying to appeal to China, as we saw with Shang-Chi, it's a one-way street, right? If I am a dude in India and I want to watch an American movie, you know what I want to watch an American movie for? Because I like American movies. I'm not watching American movies that specifically pander to my culture because they're trying to be more Indian. I'm surrounded by that bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So Bollywood wants into the American uh, uh, marketplace to sell Bollywood films, but they are not interested in opening up their marketplace to American Bollywood films. But they will certainly take usually knockoff American films.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is true because the most successful meme worthy Indian films, right, are usually ones where Indian directors who apparently are on crack make the biggest, cheesiest action knockoffs of things we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, no, the Marvels wasn't good. Made all
Yeah.
the characters look terrible.
Yeah.
Ruined the X-Men cameo.
Yep.
All the above. All the above. But you know what I watched that was worth my time?
Not that video I sent you.
The the Hulk Hogan Real American documentary. And
Okay.
it's a very complicated documentary in a lot of ways. First of all, Hulk Hogan uh, is a noted fabulist. And
I'm sorry, fabulous, meaning like he makes up fabulous things, or
fabulous are people who make up stories about themselves that aren't exactly true, but
okay,
are kind of true if you squint a bit.
so a fabulous confabulates, not like a fantasist who creates an objective fantasy.
Well, sometimes they do that too.
Hey kids, 20 minutes in on on the gospel and you're learning about words.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so it was very interesting for me going into it and watching it to see what Hulk Hogan told that was true about himself.
Yeah,
And Hulk kind of struggles with that because scandals happen and he has to find ways to contextualize the scandal so that it's always true. And he avoids talking about certain things. And some of the things he avoids talking about are very weird. Um, like he doesn't want to talk about his brother's death, and I could get that.
yeah,
But what was striking to me is his brother died of a heroin overdose, and Hulkster was doing massive amounts of fentanyl at the very tail end of his actual career as a performer.
yeah.
Like he was doing into the several thousands of units of fentanyl. So he was doing harder core stuff that his brother was doing. That's got to be fucking weird, right?
Right.
And it also doesn't talk in the Hulk Hogan leveling up his career story. It doesn't talk about the pivotal role his going to Japan played in the birth of his career. Hulk Hogan was actually one of the first Gaijin wrestlers to be given a major championship in Japan, if
You
not
think
the
you
first.
you would think they would actually make that more front and center, as that's reputation building. I opened Japan for Americans.
Well, it's not that he opened it; it's that they basically saw Hulk Hogan and said, "No, we need to make you a world champion
Right,
to to pack the Tokyo Dome and give
right. But I'm
people in
saying
here."
if you're padding your reputation in film,
Mhm.
right, and you're one of those first generation of American wrestlers, and you're one of the first ones that got a major title, you'd think that you would ride that.
And also, what's interesting is Hulk Hogan was always insulted for not being really good as a wrestler, but in Japan he had to do more. And I'm surprised in Hulk's documentary where he was telling his story for the last time, he didn't talk about that. It was really weird. Um,
I gotta ask a silly question. Does he happen to mention that does I am interested if his story of his life now dovetails with the story of his life that was released when I was younger. Does he claim to have been born a little fatty?
oh no, he was a little fatty. He
Okay.
has he has the receipts for being a fatty.
If if you're not familiar, he did a life story of Hulk Hogan for Nickelodeon, like a little special for kids. You
Mhm.
know, I was a fatty. You can get better too, right? Where he claims that little Terry Hogan was a fatty and a tuba player,
The tuba
and
player part wasn't true.
right. But getting into sports and getting healthy was part of a process of reinventing himself.
So that was less true.
Yeah.
It's not that he didn't get healthy with sports, but he actually got into wrestling because he was a bass player.
Mm.
So he was kind of big, not fat at that point, but he's like a big guy. He had
Yeah.
long blonde hair, a wild mustache. It was the mid to early '60s,
I mean,
or no, excuse me, mid to late '60s.
let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with being chubby when you're a kid, and there's nothing wrong with being a big guy. This happens.
Mhm, mhm. But no. So like he's a bass player,
Yeah.
and a bunch of the Florida wrestlers saw him playing, and they like saw the physical charisma he had and his
Yeah.
ability to carry a room as a performer, and they thought this guy might have something. And
Right.
Hulk never got on with his dad, and this became his idea on how to get his dad's respect. Now, Hulk talked about how he loved Dusty Rhodes as a kid. I'm not sure that's true. I don't have like a straight one-to-one lineup. If Dusty was doing his work in Florida at the time Hogan was a kid, that could be something he made up. But we got to see Jimmy Hart's house in the documentary.
Yeah.
Jimmy's got a goddamn big house.
Mm.
It's fucking huge. And Jimmy made money before he got into wrestling. Jimmy Hart was an actual music producer in Tennessee. He had legitimate hits in music before he got hooked up with Jerry Lawler in the Memphis wrestling scene. And then he produced music for the WWE when the WWE brought him in. So all those classic 80s and early 90s wrestling music, he was a producer in all of that.
Oh wow.
So he was getting, in addition to his wrestling royalties from him being on shows and performing, in addition to his appearance fees for being a manager and performing, he was getting royalties anytime the music was playing.
So here's the ultimate question.
Mhm.
Would you advise people check out this piece even just for casual interest? Or would you say, yeah, it's passable, you can pass it?
I would say it's something interesting to watch because there aren't often documentaries of celebrities that are made in the last year or two before they die. And even when Hulk Hogan is making stuff up about himself, they also have other wrestlers who critique Hulk Hogan's version of the story. But even when he's making up stuff about himself, you see an emotional truth and an emotional honesty in his character and his characterization. So
Well, with that in mind, I then have to ask a follow-up question because you mentioned it without mentioning it. Um, was this Hulk Hogan thinking he was gonna do a, if not an apology tour, an authenticity tour, and kind of get back into the swing of things, or was this Hulk Hogan setting the record straight because he knew he was on his way out?
so Hulk was working on starting up his own niche wrestling thing. It's like, what if we have a professional wrestling company, but that works more the Olympic collegiate style of wrestling? And he was getting that started. So this was, cooking because Hulk Hogan wanted that little bit of promotional oomph. And this was also Hulk Hogan's way to kind of sort of work on the whole Bubba the Love Sponge incident and his daughter, and him, not being okay with his daughter dating a rich black guy. So,
Okay.
wait, you don't remember the whole Hulk Hogan Gawker thing?
No, I do. It's just like I understand he had to get around behind that, but I think people, not even that they would forget. I just think that there were people that with things, bigger things to worry about on the news cycle than what Hulk Hogan did or did not say about Bubba the Love Sponge.
No, it's not about Bubba Love Sponge. It's about the black guy who's dating his daughter. Bubba wasn't the black guy who's dating his daughter.
Right, but like, just I think people would be too busy screaming about Trump to care about, and Terry Hulk Hogan's a piece of shit.
Well,
I, I
also Hulk Hogan endorsed Trump
sure,
in 2020. So there were a lot of things. There were a lot of things.
yeah.
Um, Also, Vince McMahon featured prominently in the documentary, and Vince did a really nice eulogy for Hulk at his funeral
Mm.
because Vince had respect and loyalty for this guy because he helped him become a billionaire. You got to be nice to that guy in
You
his
should be
passing,
nice to people that help you get rich. Yes.
and Vince by and large was that guy. So I recommend it because that also the love story between him and his wife Linda, who he does divorce after the reality show. Um, it's interesting. They're basically two redneck people. He's a redneck athlete musician who meets her at a bar, and they have a good time until the money runs out, as
Mm.
is often the case of their people.
Yeah, I mean, you say they're people like they're some far distant uh, ethnicity, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. It sticks with a lot of the WWE mythology. Like, for example, WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant. And within the context of that angle, they talked about how nobody could body slam Andre the Giant. In fact, there were like five guys who had body slammed Andre the Giant previously, one of those being Hulk Hogan. But since all that happened in the territory days, they were just pretending like none of that ever happened.
Right. So
And
selective history for the benefit of what's a good story.
and ironically, they actually feature in the documentary what it looks like to me to be film footage of one of the times Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant before WrestleMania 3.
Mm.
So it's wild. And also, like, they don't focus on his Japan stuff, but there are pictures of his Japan stuff in the documentary.
Yeah, as you do.
It's weird. It's weird.
I had an interesting conversation about wrestling this week. It wasn't a plan, but it did happen. Um, are you are you familiar with the ideas going around? We've talked about a couple of times about what is and is not okay to use a D&D monster for, and how how we can't be bioessentialist. All the D&D monsters have to be people with colorful cultures. So we got mexi orcs.
Well, I mean, it's done, but yes, we have talked about that before.
Yeah. Uh, I posited that not only is this bad for the game, but this doesn't work in how they've shifted it away from competing non-humans to undead, because it fails the bar for wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my basic argument was that in a regular D&D game, you're a wrestler. Usually you're the face. Sometimes you're the heel. Heel stables happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your disparate antagonists exist to generate heat. So if you're fighting goblins, that's like a trash mob. That's an exotico. So that's your wrestler in the ring with 3 or 4 midgets. You're not going to get beaten by the midgets, but it's a fun time to look at, right? Uh,
Rune, the way you're selling this to me, I feel like this should be a OSR supplement.
oh sure. Um, and then the idea is that then you have um like dark elves, and dark elves are super sly and dangerous, but they're more interested in playing the game. They're the kinds of people that will slip in the hidden weapon. They'll fill the Gatorade with DMT. They're making deals with the manager's fiance behind the scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you really need is you need orcs. Orcs are jobbers, right? Orcs do a job. That's it. Your rank and file orc is not a threat, but he has to appear to be a credible threat and exists expressly to make you look good on the path to getting to the big bad.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call an orc a jobber, but they are enhancement talents.
Sure. I, I'm sure there are better examples of jobs, but the idea is that, like, your warlord, your orc warlord, your big bad, he's not a jobber. He's the actual threat. He's the title fight,
Mm-hmm.
right? But all the guys in the middle are there to boost your rep, to build the story. This
Mm-hmm.
works for competing humanoids because there's love and hate and betrayal and all the things that make good story. this doesn't work for the undead, right? Because first and foremost, even the most shambling zombie, the base undead are not jobbers. The base undead don't job, right?
Well, I mean, they're like the Undertaker.
Right. But well, see, that's the thing. I posited when I discussed with my bros, the Undertaker's like a Death Knight, right?
Mhm.
And when a Death Knight does drop, yeah, there's immediate fear, there's immediate reciprocity, but it's not because of any kind of passion he's generating from, oh man, this is going to be their battle for the ages because these guys hate each other. It's going to be, oh man, I'm going to fight this inevitable force of unstoppable murder that is just going
Mhm.
to end people now. Your journey ends here, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I basically asserted that we need to stop worrying about who's going to be offended about how we game, right? And just let people job. Just let monsters job. Having a jobber is not bad, right?
Look,
And
look,
and I went
look.
on to explain just real quick. I went on to explain that some people make a profession out of jobbing. Some of those monsters that are things you kick and you don't think about, we love them
Mhm.
because they're jobbers. For every nameless nobody, there's an Iron Sheik. you know?
Well, Shiki Baby is actually an interesting figure if you
Sure.
know the history.
I do not.
So Sheik, before he came to the U.S., was a member of the Iranian wrestling team on the Olympics,
Right.
and he was a bodyguard for the Shah.
Okay.
And then he came to the U.S., got in professional wrestling, and then had to play a bad guy supporting the Ayatollah who overthrew the Shah, whose family he had sworn an oath to.
Oddly enough, I
That,
think he would have loved this because that meant he was humiliating the man that destroyed the family he protected.
mhm, mhm. But also, Sheik was one of those guys in professional wrestling who did all the drugs.
Mm.
But unlike Jake the Snake Roberts, he didn't get fucked up on the drugs. He just was like a cantankerous Middle Eastern. But
So his answer to have I taken enough drugs was I need to take more drugs is what you're saying.
yes, yes, he was that kind of drug person. He was that kind of drug person. Um, and it talks about how Sheik loses the title to Hogan in the documentary, but it doesn't talk about the guy who had the title before Sheik, Bob Backlund, who was like just like a white meat, goody two shoes character
Yeah.
who gives it up to Sheik as a transitional title to give it to Hogan, and how Hogan wasn't even working for the company when that whole sequence happened. And he was in. This was also why his Japan arc is important because he was in Japan. He goes back to the AWA, gets his AWA character over. All of that is kind of cooking around the same time frame. But it's a good thing. I recommend it if you're interested in the history, and if you're interested in an emotionally true story that might not necessarily be a factual story. But
And it
speaking about
and it makes you feel good when you're done. Hopefully.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that aren't factual stories, I got some comics to talk about.
Sweet.
So you remember how I've been talking about this Barbarian Behind Bars comic,
Mm-hmm.
and our titular barbarian got into a fight with some neo Nazis.
Oh boy.
Well, the neo Nazis ripped the magic item off his forehead. That I'm assuming the magic item is what connected him to his goddess. And one of the neo Nazis swallows it, and he is eventually going to turn into an exploding neo Nazi pulp. And one of the other gods of the world are wanting to claim that power source for themselves. And there's also an axe that is taking possession of another guard. And meanwhile, the defense attorney is like looking on of her client who has been brutally injured after a savage fight with some neo-Nazis, and she's like going, "Man, I hope you didn't start this, and I hope you're okay."
I was about to say, it's like, was he fighting the neo Nazis because he finds them objectionable, or he's fighting the neo Nazis because when they said, "Are you gonna get in with our bullshit?" he said, "I have no time for your civilized bullshit."
Um, it's a modified version of number two.
Okay,
The neo-Nazis expected him to become part of their bullshit, and while he
right,
did not speak English, he understood enough English to know he did not want to be a part of their bullshit.
right.
And so they decided to bum rush him in the shower.
Of course they did, because chicken shits.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a slow burn comic. Um, I'm wondering if this is going to be one of those comics that just basically finishes at issue 8. But it's interesting. I keep recommending reading it. And I picked up the Spider-Man Superman #1 anthology. And
Okay.
there were some other parts of the anthology that weren't in there. There's like some backups that had the infamous Power Girl Punisher crossover, which involved Paul of all things. But the main story has Venom and the symbiotes because it ties into a symbiote plotline that's also going on in Marvel. Symbiotes took over Thing and Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four. Uh, so it's weird symbiote stuff. And they had a symbiote take over Superman,
Oh boy, like,
which worked out really well until Superman realized, wait, I just have heat vision. And that became an immediate problem for the symbiote.
right. Although, yet again, people tend to forget that the symbiote gains the abilities of anyone that it has even temporarily bonded with.
I mean, really, the only thing they should have done is they should have had Null connect to Superman.
Right. I just bring this up because there have been occasions where the Venom symbiote specifically has gained additional resilience to resist Sonics and Fire, his two
Mm-hmm.
consistent weaknesses that he still gets hit with on regular,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, huh, if I absorbed Kryptonian and became able to fly and resistant to a lot of things, I could see him becoming resistant to heat vision, but then gaining the weakness to kryptonite.
Yeah. But Peter and Superman as Clark hang out to talk about Uncle Ben. And Clark takes Peter and Aunt May to hang out with Ma and Pa Kent.
Because
That's the
I've
eight.
seen this page going around. Is this the same comic where Superman talks down the Hulk?
That's another story in the anthology.
Okay, but same book.
Same book. Um, they have Spider-Man Noir with Golden Age Superman,
Okay.
which is kind of neat. Kind of like that. They have a Justice League / Legion of Superheroes team up with the Avengers. That's where the Hulk thing happens.
Right.
They have a brief Batgirl, Supergirl, not Batgirl, Batgirl Ghost Spider little side thing.
Right.
Also, Wonder Woman's in there for some dumb reason.
Because if you're having a story with two female superheroes, it has to become girl power, so we have to have all the girl power.
Yeah. Um, it's fine because it's a one-off cash grab comic. That is my personal opinion of it. The art was pretty good, and the writing is better than the writing that's in the mainline Spider-Man comic books. Probably because editorial on both companies said, listen, this needs to actually be good writing because people are actually going to buy this, and we need to not poison the well for the next time we try this cash grab.
Oh, I have had a deep well of Spider-Man this week, actually,
Mhm.
on two fronts. Now, mind you, some of this is old business, but it
Mhm.
sticks out. It's an older code, but it
But
fits.
it checks out.
Um, so the first was I actually for the longest time thought that um uh it was uh Joe Q that was responsible for One More Day, which he still is ostensibly, right? But I was actually informed, much to my surprise, that the problem was Tom Brevoort, right? Because there was a conversation about what is a Spider-Man, right? And person one, I'm trying to find the message, but it's not coming up. I'm looking. Um, was that Spider-Man is about responsibility in whatever form, right? And Tom Brevoort is the one who made the counter that Spider-Man is about being young. It's about youth. And I think that this is a fundamental misunderstanding of Spider-Man. There it is. I found it. So the overall conversation was somebody being snarky about someone else disdaining that Peter Parker has multiple girlfriends and that current comics might I think it's frankly an overreaction might be trying to set up Flash Thompson and MJ hooking up again, right? Uh and
Yeah, no, that is in the current Venom comic.
right. Well, I pointed out that Peter had multiple failed relationships, right? That we actually don't have a problem with Peter having a lot of relationships because he's always ever been like with one person at a time. It's like, was he with Felicia? He flirted with Felicia, but they didn't really get into it. Once he was with MJ, he was with MJ, right? Um, and I pointed out that the one more day initiative is offensive not only because of what it does to Peter Parker as a character, but because it reduces his women to arm candy. The women in his life are not people, partners, and friends, right? It was also Peter could bounce from bed to bed with from woman to woman, right? Which
Hmm.
means it's not good for Pete and it's not good for those characters, right?
Hmm.
Uh and I said, remember this is a corporate mandate. This was an external force. This wasn't a individual writer. This wasn't Peter Parker doing this, right? And somebody shared this. This is from Tom DeFalco's blog.
Hmm.
Okay. Tom Brevoort recently said that the Spider-Man series is all about youth, and he's the editor, so he gets to call the shots. Now, when I was editor of Spider-Man, I thought the series was all about responsibility. So I think that if you're playing with this, with that, the series is about responsibility. That allows you to have him get married. Ultimately, allows you to have him have a baby, because the more responsibilities you pile on the character, his life and series become more interesting.
I mean, that was what Jim Shooter's idea was. That's why Jim Shooter was working towards the MJ marriage from the beginning.
Right. So this means Tom Brevoort's a fucking moron.
Well, yes.
Because every time they've said we need to take Spider-Man back to high school and we need to remove all of his accumulated woes and we need to give him new kid woes, it has never worked.
Well, they also recently tried to put him in middle school,
Because high school is not young enough anymore.
basically. It's more because they kept doing so many things in high school. They understood that doing that again would have been too much.
How long before spider sperm?
I mean, they're not going to do spider sperm. That's a little. Well, let me rephrase that. They're not going to do spider sperm again. They did
Okay.
that once in comics.
Okay, so instead, what we'll get is we'll get baby Parker getting bit by a spider in the recovery room post birth, and encountering Green Goblin baby in a mini series about spider babies.
That hurts me. That hurts me because that's almost stupid enough for something that they would do.
Isn't it? I don't want to be right, Larry.
Yeah.
But
So,
the other, well, real quick, the other Spider-Man conversation is I embarrassed a guy on the internet.
all right.
You might appreciate this. So, um, every so often I get in my feed, even not people I'm following, okay, just people who end up in my feed and I can't get rid of them. Uh, ultra Catholic extremist douche nozzles,
Mhm.
right? And so a guy named Trad West, which tells you everything you fucking need to know about him, but there's more, right? Did the following post. Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3 get infected by a dark alien symbiote that acts exactly like demonic possession. It gives you a temporary high of power and turns you into arrogant, cruel, and isolated. Realize the suit is actually a parasite consuming your soul and you can't rip it off on your own. Go to the one place that can save you, a church. Climb into the belfry in absolute agony, trying to fight the darkness. The massive church bells start to ring. In Catholic tradition, church bells are literally anointed with the sacred charism oil by bishops to drive out evil. The consecration prayer literally says, "At the sound of these bells, may the enemy always flee." The resounding frequency of the holy bells physically tortures the symbiote, forcing it to release the grip on Peter. He rips off the demon from his chest and is finally free. Director disguised literal Catholic teaching as the climax of a superhero blockbuster.
Well, I mean,
Based.
number one, that wasn't really the climax of that movie.
Right.
It was a strong emotional beat of that movie. Number
So, so here's the thing. I said, I believe you mean director loves comics, recreates iconic scene from those comics. Now, if you want to say the comics were making a traditional moral comparison, more power to you, right?
and I
I
mean,
don't think I
I
don't think
think
they
they
were,
were.
but you could make that
No,
argument,
I think that was because this was again during the Jim Shooter era in comics.
right?
They were borrowing the religious icon because it's the easy way to make those
Right.
emotional connections in the story.
So somebody named Hot Diggity Dog jumps out of the woodwork and says, "Iconic scene from the comics." Lol, what are you talking about? That scene is not in the original comic.
I mean, it is though.
Right, somebody in regular Wenley jumped out and said, "That scene is literally from the original comic, Web of Spider-Man #1," and he gave the receipt. He posted the panel.
Yeah, I don't know. I do also have an indie book review to share with the class.
Okay.
So Rune and I are the role playing contingent of the show, assuming the rest of the show ever shows back up.
Yep.
If we're not, if the rest of the show doesn't show back up, we're the whole show. But and I was in a Amber Reddit Discord that also does Amber Dice's role playing, and someone said, "Hey,"
I didn't even think about this as a thing. I should have realized.
and someone said, "Hey, here's my book that's inspired by Amber, and you should totally buy this book." And I did, and as a aspiring author who has not finished his work enough to do what this guy has done, which is to produce a book, I would not use this tier of art to sell the book. But that's again just me. But what's your opinion of the cover on this book?
Can we make it bigger?
You want me to embiggen it?
Yeah, can you embiggen it?
Uh, okay. Image a new tab. Hopefully that. God damn it! Why do you Why do you fail your family, Amazon? Let me see if I can find a better version of the image. Uh, uh, no, appears to
Okay.
be the case.
Well,
Amazon does not want it to be larger.
well, from what I can see, yeah, it's not a level of art that I would have gone with, but I want to give it its kudos where it deserves it, and it really does deserve the kudo. Um, it is not a bland mono image cover of like a helmet with a sword and fancy, gold flecked title,
Hmm.
right? It at least does not look like every other book title on a shelf.
Yeah, and let me actually pull up one of the author's other books here, so you can get a sense of
Yeah.
where his artistic sensibilities are. He also does indie role playing game stuff. So
Oh,
I
that
mean, yeah,
I'm sorry. That art for that game looks much worse than his RPG cover. Does he do his
yeah,
own art or does he have somebody else to do it?
I do not know. And here's one from book series. It's his second. Oh, you make this one large for Amazon. It's not strong, not
Yeah.
strong art game. The problem I have with the book is it was way more focused on its world building, and it wasn't focused enough on why I should care about the characters that exist in the world.
Right.
It was a very similar, people dispossessed from their inheritance, scheming, yada 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 kind of book. But um, I'm just showing this book here because we again we do talk about books sometimes on the gospel,
I
and
mean,
we
yeah,
give
there's
access to books. We and indie books if
we,
more
we
more people.
literature.
Yeah, more people want to tempt us towards doing things like that. You can always give us content.
Oh yeah.
It'd
Uh,
be nice if I had book PDFs that I could share with Rune and other people.
I mean,
But
look, he's not here tonight, as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm wrong. And I did send him the invite late because I'd almost forgotten. But I'm not kidding. Uh, Somebody on Substack approached me and was like, "Link me to your podcast," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, right now our podcast is really here because the usual ones aren't available because of StreamYards. But I'll let you know when we go live, right?"
mhm, mhm.
And it's like, "Oh wow, there are people interested in our podcast, Larry." So if
Yeah,
we start
we
reviewing books and RPGs and actually making gainful content, I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen? Question marks.
exactly. So, have you seen the Coyote versus Acme trailer that's been floating around?
Yes, I love it, but at the same time, I'm gonna make a controversial argument. It is the best trailer of the interview I've ever seen.
Hmm. I mean, I think the concept is good. I think it's a strong concept. I don't know how the execution's going to work out.
the The reason I compare it to the interview is not because it's bad. In fact, I think the interview was good as a guideline. It was fun to watch the once, but so much of that film's success hinges on the idea that it was stolen and that it was then released to the populace for free as a giant fuck you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So much of Coyote versus Acme's legend is built on, as they say in the trailer, the film Warner Brothers doesn't want you to see,
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, that is some classic ass marketing.
And yeah, I'm not even questioning it. I'm not even saying they're doing anything bad. I'm just saying that that's going to work once, right? If this movie is bad, they're done,
I
right?
mean, and you think the core concept, which comes out in the trailer,
Yeah.
and it's a good concept. It's a strong concept. I'm not sure how you feel about Foghorn Leghorn as an executive at the Acme Corporation.
Personally, I think it's a horrible misstep not to have Foghorn Leghorn as a as an attorney for the prosecution.
Well, I mean, it's the defense actually because they're suing Acme,
Right,
and they're having.
but I'm saying you get Foghorn Leghorn to be the antagonist lawyer. So you put him for the prosecution. You put him for Acme,
Mhm.
right? And he's every evil Southern lawyer trope you could imagine, but it's Foghorn Leghorn. I think that's a solid idea, but I wasn't in the writing room, so
I mean, they're giving John Cena the ability to be the attorney, and what people have
you
said
know I
is
just don't see it.
this. Ha! But what people said, no, but what a lot of people said is this is actually one of the better roles that John Cena has done.
Right?
And that had to suck. Like, one of your better movies got put in the can and locked away. And then Warner Brothers, because they were having money problems, sold it to an outsourced production company to distribute it. It's
Right.
it's kind of wild when you think about
Oh yeah.
it.
This also
And
puts on the this also putting into context for people how bad Batwoman was
Batgirl, not
or
Batwoman.
Batgirl. Yeah. It
Batwoman was also bad, but that was a TV
right.
show that was bad.
Right. But Batgirl is so bad that when they were looking at what trash can we outsource, they said this, not that.
Well, I think it's more that an animated movie. I think they could recoup more off of it than off of a actual with people movie.
Oh, certainly, certainly. But I was just saying that the mental image of of Warner Brothers basically doing the equivalent of Pawn Stars going to an executive and being like, "Well, look, I found this in our trash bag in the back under a wet pile of paper towels," and they're like, "Best I could do is Warner versus is Acme versus Coyote."
Yeah, yeah. So have you paid attention to the nonsense that Robert Kirkman has been circulating in relation to the
Yes,
Invincible TV show?
yes, and I stand by my original position, ongoing in perpetuity.
That the Invincible comic book wasn't really that good.
Yeah, I no, it's more than that. It's I specifically have gone to several people's conversations and I've asked them, "Why are you surprised?" And they're like, What do you mean?" So let's walk through this. So you have the Invincible comic. First and foremost, it's a Kirkman book.
Mhm,
All right. I have read multiple Kirkman books. They all have the same general trajectory. Start strong when the idea is strong.
mhm,
Runs for, let's be charitable and say, between 20 to 100 issues,
mhm.
right? And then there's a noticeable drop off, either because Kirkman himself bows out because he's out of ideas, but they want to keep the gravy train going,
I mean,
right?
also Kirkman's got a big company. He's working a
Right.
lot of
Or
fires in the oven.
Kirkman himself just doesn't have ideas, right? So the series begins to dither, begins to lose its identity over the series of books. It should have been canceled at this point,
Mhm.
right? Then we look at the specifics of the material, and it's like we should have known that an Invincible TV show was never going to pass muster. Okay, as people have said that as they're quickly approaching at the at the speed of light. It's like the Adam Eve abortion arc, even if it stands well in isolation, was never going to sell well to a mass media, to a wide population, right? And
Mhm.
we're just about up to the Mark gets raped arc,
Right, but they
right?
can't do that, so it's going to be Mark having consensual rough sex, I guess, is what they're going to have to do.
Sure, sure. And let's see them
But
sell that. But the thing
but
is that when we look at this in the book, it was dumb in the book. Nobody liked it
yes,
in the book. right?
Mhm.
So
Like,
then it's like, so then we move forward. It's like, okay, we're doing an animated series. What are you doing? Invincible. Is it like inspired by? No, we're doing a shot for shot. It's like, oh, okay. So any changes they make are going to piss off loyalists who loved every single panel, right? As evidenced by the first girlfriend in the first season, where people were like,
mhm,
"Who the fuck is this? And why the fuck is she running her mouth at Mark, who's a good boy in the early issues, right?"
mhm.
And then now as we reach the terminus, right? Nobody is happy about the direction the show is going. And my answer is, of course you aren't. It's what was in the book. You didn't like the book, or you
Well,
didn't
no,
read the book.
they
Why are you
also
why are you
they're
shocked that the product based off of a bad source material would be bad?
well, they also gender swapped one of the bad guys, and here's Robert Kirkman's commentary on that.
No,
One of the
yeah, carry on.
Yeah, one of the downsides of Invincible is Corey Walker and I were like 23 and 21 when we started the book, and your default when you're not really paying attention is yourself. Kirkman said every time we introduce another character, it's like, oh look, it's another white male. Who knew? It's just a shortcoming that we hadn't quite noticed and done our due diligence to correct. So I kind of wanted to
Right.
drill down into this particular piece of stupid.
I mean, it's two parts stupid. It's not that deep.
Well, no, but I mean, I went to drill down because there's some actual concepts packed in here.
I mean,
So
besides Kirkman's a self-hating cracker.
well, let's start with the real stuff. Now, if we go into big cities, which have a large portion of our population, certainly, that is where you are more likely to see black or brown people, but not super more likely to see black or brown people. If you go to other parts of the country, including other large cities, cities large enough to have a professional football team, there are going to be a lot of white people. And due to cultural forces, which were relevant forces to Mark's life, uh, a self segregation has occurred because people do tend to live near people who are socioeconomically more like them. So, first, representation that doesn't make sense is that in and of itself good if you were telling a specific sort of story? Like if Mark was a white boy who grew up in Hell's Kitchen in New York, that would be a very different story if all of his friends were white, unless he was super into being Irish or super being part of the European immigrants that are still going into Hell's Kitchen disproportionately.
So here's the thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Many moons ago, I wanted to write a fan fiction, and I was
Mm-hmm.
communicating with an author on the regular, wonderfully nice man. Um, and what I was working on was a shadow story. I was doing a shadow fan fiction, and Shadow's entering into public domain soon.
Mm-hmm.
So neat. Uh, and what I didn't realize at the time is I was basically writing Shadow as Batman Beyond, just not sci-fi,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was an older Shadow coming out of pseudo retirement to build a new network of agents, right? And his version of Harry, the his primary agent, I want to say Harry Vincent, but I don't think that's the name. Uh, was going to be a black kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? The thing was is
Although,
that
although a black kid being the shadow is
no,
kind of
no, that's the thing.
awkward.
That's the thing. Not being the Shadow, being the Shadow's agent,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the thing is that I never thought about the question. Well, he's a black kid. Why a black kid? Because the Shadow saves people, and the people he saves work for the Shadow. It is the Shadow's way, right?
Also, realistically, the Shadow is a New York City character, although they're vague on what major city he was in, if I remember the old radio stuff.
Does a lot of mucking around in Chinatown and in Brooklyn. So,
Yeah. So there's more racial diversity in the Shadow's home territory.
but the point was is that the question of ethnicity never really approached me until I was mid-story and I was trying to describe a certain presence of information and went, wait a minute, can I even dress this character that way? Am I doing a racism? Right? And I had to go back and consider some of the things that I'd written. But it didn't stop the story. What stopped the story is I ran out of juice. It was a fan fiction. It wasn't going anywhere anyway. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, some people write fan fictions and then later convert their porno fan fiction into a book like
Right.
50 Shades of Grey. So it could have
Right.
went somewhere, Joe.
It's the shadow porn fiction. No. What I'm getting at is that in the moment, as a creative, you don't think about the question of is this appropriate to anyone else. You think about what's good for the story, and what's good for the story is you just write things. You just write it. Just keep it
Mm-hmm.
moving. The ethnicity of Tech Jacket does not matter. Never did.
Well, it's the genitals of Tech Jacket that they're concerned about.
I'm sorry, what?
It's the genitals of Tech Jacket they're concerned about.
Right, but I'm saying that those never mattered in development.
He was just somebody with technology powers.
Right, somebody with tech powers, done. Moving on. Didn't think about it. Right? And to be fair, if they had done the gender swap, right? And then people said, "Why'd you do a gender swap?" And Kirkman said, "Why do you give a shit?" and just walked away. And I don't mean why do you care? Insert extremist lefty talking points here. I mean just literally said we did it. So what? It was a dude in a tech suit. There's still a dude in a tech suit. I didn't take away their powers. I didn't change their identity. If you can't project on a young woman in a tech suit, you have the problem. It's a dude in a tech
Well,
suit.
hold up. First things first. First things first. That's very
Right.
important. It is a different character because of the way they've written the character. Because they've written the
Right.
character to be female. Number
Right.
one, that's
But this
important.
is the third step. This is the other part of the dumb, which is then he says in this interview piece, um, oh well, we didn't think about it at the time, but we probably would have otherwise had we thought about it, right? I don't think this is a true opinion. I think this is pandering. I think this is
Mhm.
trying to appease the current day politic, and that's just dumb.
Mhm. But let's ramble a little bit here for a
Okay,
moment.
all right.
Let's ramble a bit here for a moment. If you were going to write a story about you as a young person in high school, you would base certain characters off of people you knew from high school. It's like the easy foundational stuff in your first draft. And then you might tweak it from those people that you're inspired by, right?
Yeah, sure.
You could take somebody you knew who wasn't Hispanic and make that a Hispanic person. You could add that texture and detail. You could take somebody who was white and you could add the texture and detail and make them black. Now, obviously, you do want to be sensitive when you do that, but you don't have to just say, oh, well, I just defaulted to writing people white. That's weird. That's
Yeah,
weird. So, like, I've written some things that have been published and some things that haven't been published. And one of the things I wrote that's been published, there are people from India in it and people from Afghanistan in it because that's where the characters were. And the main audience viewpoint characters, while they were white people, they were white people because they were part of the British Army that was in Afghanistan during the Afghanistan War. I didn't write those characters to be white because I'm white. I wrote them because the conflict of the war had the white people in one section of the conflict. And there were people of other races and ethnicities and social groups that were elsewhere in the war. So we wrote those people because they existed as part of the landscape of conflict. You, I don't understand what he is saying. Number one, I just don't
yeah,
understand that mentality from a creation standpoint.
right.
Now I've written another story that's a fantasy alike that's strongly based off of classical Ireland. and there aren't people of color in it because I'm writing something that has a very strong through line of classical Gaelic culture. I'm not putting black people in there because that would be weird. People would say, well, why in this hyper fantasy version of classical Ireland are there black people? Then I'd have to say, well, they got brought into slavery from this other continent, and then it just starts to warp the core of the story that I'm focused on. So I don't have people of color in that story because it doesn't make sense with that story. Then on the flip side, I have something else that's not published that's a pre-cyberpunk story. And in that pre-cyberpunk story, there are people of all sorts of different races and ethnicities. Central characters who are Hispanic are major important characters. Not because I wanted to make Hispanics a dog whistle, little purse puppy thing. Not because I just turned people I knew into Hispanics, because there was a character in the text of the story that my idea was, well, what if we have a Marco Rubio like figure in that setting? Which becomes very weird because of what's been happening to Marco Rubio since I wrote that story. But be that as it may. So you write the character's ethnicity in a way that serves the story, serves the narrative. All the things in your story are supposed to advance the story, do the job, and communicate what you want to communicate to the reader.
Well, we actually have a classroom example of this that you and I deal with on the regular.
Mm-hmm.
So, first and foremost, when I was developing Byron, you remember Byron,
Yes.
right? I had to give Byron a sire,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided to use this old story beat that I had developed back in org of this idea of a revolution led by a guy named Adamant. It was actually developed for Changeling of all things,
Mm-hmm.
right? But Adamant didn't have a face, didn't have an ethnicity, didn't have a culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there I am. I'm developing Byron. Our game is set in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted Byron to be an ancilla compared to the fact that we got a bunch of young kids here, right? Because we didn't have rules for elder, right? So I was like, all right. So he's from he was born in 1900. He was a kid in the 19 teens. So he didn't get to go to World War One. And he was an adult in the 1920s when he got turned. Didn't get to go to World War II either, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, all right. So what's his personality? What's he like? And I said, I could put him in Boston, which gets him adjacent to the megapolis, so he can experience the Harlem Renaissance. And I can do big band. I can lean into all those 1920s aesthetics we like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
kind of dodge the simple fact that if you're dealing in the 1920s and 30s in the South, you have to address that it is post Civil War, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to address that people are poor, and you have to address the fucking Klan. I didn't want to deal with any of that bullshit.
Well, I mean, it's more complicated than that with the Reconstruction South, but in the
It,
post Reconstruction South, but a lot of black people just fled to the north. That's why a lot of the northern cities have
right,
a lot of black people.
right. In the very, very broad, in the shared language of time period for story, it made sense to make Byron not be a local to Kentucky, but a vampire that had wandered around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, it's like, well, what's Adamant? Adamant's his sire. Okay, and I could have made him a white guy. I could have. Just another guy, make it a guy, whatever, right? But it struck me as interesting. It's wait a minute. What if Byron was part of the new Negro movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people forget that existed,
Mm-hmm.
right? This post Civil War, early 20th century Northern movement for assimilation, not a Malcolm
Yeah.
X alike, not a
Yes.
Martin Luther King.
Well, I mean that gets into the whole great debate thing,
Right.
which
So
most people don't know about.
So here I am, and I'm like, okay, well, Adamant was old. Adamant would have been an elder to Byron. So how old is Byron, or how old is Adamant? Where did Adamant come from? And it's like, well, what if he was part of the Haitian Revolution, right? So now we're starting to see the trends that lead to a powerful anarch. You have this person from a given area of the world, right, who is subject to actual oppression, becomes a vampire, looks at the social system and says, "No, I ain't living with this forever," right? Because why would he trade one master in mortal days for an immortal master that will never die, right? And so he says, "I'm going to assimilate. I'm going to be a great man in a great society." And he says, "What is the greatest thing you can do to shape that society? You could change the people in it." So he made a vampire. He made a child out of Byron. He found a poor, ignorant white kid in Boston and said, "You." And he made him a vampire. And then he started the process of educating him, right? Because without specifically tiptoeing around the idea of the racial divide or racial politics, right? Essentially, what the story I'm proposing as a white man with Adamant is that Adamant declared, "I'm not going to let another generation of racist white people be racist. I'm going to make white people that know what the fuck's going on out here." Right? But all of the drives, all of the decision making was never expressly, "I'm going to make a black vampire to have a black vampire." Right? There's a lot of layers, a lot of storytelling beats going on about why this character is this way, which is why now, if you ask me, "Hey Joe, what does Adamant look like?" I'm like, Denzel.
I mean, Denzel's a good. He's always good. It's
And
a
I don't
good
I don't mean
constantly.
I don't mean modern Denzel. I mean like in his prime Denzel. If you
I
just
mean,
imagine
Denzel's
Denzel.
son's also good,
Yeah.
and
It
all,
Go ahead.
and also related to this, we also have the fact that Man at Arms is now going to be played by Idris Elba in the He-Man movie. That's probably not going to be any good.
Yeah. And again, very much like the Spider-Man thing that I talked about earlier. It's not that this is bad for Man at Arms. Man at Arms is a character. It's not that it's bad for race relations or any of that shit. But I will say it's a really bad role for Idris Elba. I mean, Idris Elba did go on record. He says he watched He-Man growing up. He loved the show. Fine, whatever. But it's like, come on, man. You deserve serious roles. And they got you being Man at Arms in a soy latte version of He-Man. That sucks.
So,
I don't want to live in a world where Idris Elba's best role is as the police chief in Zootopia.
I mean, that was a pretty good role, though. That was a pretty good role, though. Not gonna lie. I do want to share something else with you that came across my feed that I think is another interesting point of discussion because we talked a little bit about how politics makes certain things weird. You're not going to hear the audio because I'm on the wrong browser, but you are going to hear you are going to see
Well,
the text of it when I set it up.
well give me a minute before we jump into this because I got to get back to the machine. I had stepped away for just a
Okay.
second while we were rambling.
Okay.
But while you're setting it up, let me ramble to you about this. I did actually watch that entire video that I sent you that you couldn't watch
Because it was terrible.
because it was terrible. So for our audience, there's a gentleman, there's a young soy boy. Yes, this is a bigoted review by name of In Praise of Shadows, who decided to do a review of the Blade series of films. He actually did mention that there was a Blade TV show and actually dug into it at some length. So credit's due. He does his homework.
Mhm.
The problem is that he does his homework and then ignores any results he doesn't like. He is so bad at scholarship it hurts. And one of the and what I took away from the review was that delicate hybrid of talking about how important Blade is, because they didn't want to come out of their way and say that a movie starring a black man as a superhero that predates Iron Man and made the idea of a modern superhero movie happen wasn't important. He didn't want to say that because it's not on his racial stack, right? But consistently talked about how basically Blade is a shit movie. These are terrible popcorn films because clearly they don't bone up to other real films because he's an art school dink,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, first thing I also want to say about the Blade movie is I think
Yeah.
the Blade movie took inspiration from the World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade, and
Oh,
I think
it
it's
objectively did.
and
Did
I
you not
think
hear
it's
about this?
no. I didn't know that for certain, but it seemed obvious enough for me to look at it that was.
So one of the key elements which this guy fails to address, because he buys into the underworld mythology, which also rips off World of Darkness at great length.
Well, I mean
It,
that's not what the court agreed. The court said that they were distinct, but
right.
we could haggle on that one.
But what happened in Blade is that Blade in the 70s looks nothing like Blade in the movie, of course,
Right.
right?
Because
Because
Blade
by
in the 70s is more inspired by Blackula.
right, because by 1991, 1992, which is 10 years before the Blade movie got made, Blade looked more like his classic appearance from the Spider-Man animated series. Red shirt and leather jacket,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they were developing the aesthetic, the visuals for vampires and for Blade in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without actually paying him or giving him any recognition, they helped themselves to Bradstreet's art from World of Darkness. They lifted from Masquerade almost whole cloth and
Well,
just didn't pay him because fuck that artist.
I also think the way that they set up Vampire Society in the movie
Very clearly
borrowed
the Camarilla,
from it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I think
then,
it represents it really well.
but here's the thing. Then when Guillermo del Toro did the sequel, which I fucking love, and I don't know why people hate it, they're clearly wrong. Right? Guillermo del Toro went to Bradstreet and said, "Hey, they ripped you off last movie." And Bradstreet was like, "Yeah." And he's like, I won't. Can I pay you to do more art?" And he was like, "Okay."
Yeah,
So I want to be clear. Guillermo del Toro, this guy claimed Guillermo del Toro's worst movie was Blade 2. I think Guillermo del Toro's worst movie was Shape of Water. Possibly his new Frankenstein. I don't know. He's done worse, but I will never not give Guillermo credit for paying an artist and saying you deserve recognition for your efforts from how they have
I
shaped a
mean,
media.
that's complicated to say. What's the worst Guillermo del Toro movie? Because Shape of Water was very much his interest in Freudian psychology, and
Well, I mean, as a for instance, having watched it, I did not like the end of Pan's Labyrinth, but that doesn't mean Pan's Labyrinth was bad. But I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it again if I could avoid it.
I I understand why he said it in the Spanish Civil War, but I don't feel like that was necessary. I mean, I understand he was wanting it to be like a Narnia kind of a story, and he was giving it a Spanish flavor to give it a little texture. I kind of dig that, but also I think you could just set it anywhere. So are you back to your machine room?
Just give me a second. Continue to ramble.
All right. But yeah, I had trouble watching it because the guy clearly didn't do his homework. And it was just not worth my time to continue to listen to him having not done his homework. It is very much like his criticism of Wendy. He didn't didn't do the assigned reading.
Well, quite frankly, what I find very interesting, what I would actually be more interested to explore is there a disconnect between the amount of scholarship someone does on a subject and the amount of production they put into videography?
I'm not sure that's. I'm not sure that's a thing.
Well, because this guy does videos. He does these, very long, not Mahler length, but long form video essays.
Mm.
And I wonder if he actually thinks that he doesn't have to do scholarship, because as long as he can fool enough people with pretty images, he's just objectively correct. I mean, the eye does defeat the ear in education.
Okay.
But
So are you
I don't.
ready?
I'm about to be. But I don't think, objectively, that cute visuals make good product. Sorry about that. I had a doggo that would not be stopped.
Animals are like that. So we're about to watch some Fire Nation
Oh
propaganda.
boy. I mean, that's also a waterbender propaganda, oddly enough. Unless you're saying that this particular asshole was
Well, no. Did
was
you did there's a text there? You need to
yeah, I
read the
see that.
text while the video
Yeah.
plays.
Yeah. You are correct. That is absolutely propaganda.
But what do we think about the fact that the original Avatar series focused on how a modernistic, nationalistic, fascistic force was interested in gender equality in a way that the more traditional nations were not?
Except it wasn't.
Well, no, it was. Women were in prominent positions in the Fire Nation.
Yes, but there's a misunderstanding here, and many people fall into it. So I'm not saying you do. I'm not
Mhm.
proposing you do. I know, I understand you're putting the question out there to generate conversation, but
Yes.
um, the vast majority, yeah, would look at it and go, see, these other nations are backward with their traditions and their gender binaries and their differences, and women can't do this and women can do that. The Fire Nation was forward thinking and egalitarian because the women had equity and they could hold positions. No, the Fire Nation was a utilitarian, totalitarian regime.
Mhm.
Everyone was state property.
Mhm.
Everyone. Which meant that everyone's value was determined on their usefulness to the state. And if you had no usefulness, though they never exactly said they take you up behind the chemical sheds, the implication is that at best you were good for grunt labor till you died, right? Or for breeding babies. Um, when everyone is the property of the state, your freedoms and your personal desires don't matter. You are an object. These women were not more free. It's not that everyone was treated equally. It's that everyone was treated like shit.
Mhm.
And it's made worse by the fact that there's a imperialist hierarchy. Many of the women that they show in that clip were women who were born to what we now would recall privilege. They were born to high positions, right? And happened to have abilities useful for the state, so they happened to become members of position and authority by virtue that their position gave them authority, not because they were qualified, not because they were good, not because they wanted it,
Mhm.
right? And if anybody is confused by this, and this is not apologetics for a psycho bitch, look at Azula.
Mhm.
Azula belonged to her father. Her father's children were not going to embarrass his dynasty or diminish his upward momentum, which is why Zuko was defamed for losing an Agna Kai and being maimed, right? And so she was an absolute murderous psychopath because she would do
Well,
anything to please daddy.
Well, I mean, Zuko's problem wasn't that he lost the Agnicai; it's that he embarrassed his father during the meeting,
Right. But
and that
all of these things add on to each other.
and Zuko, once he realized his error, tried to apologize, and that was wrong because under the Fire Nation society, no, you need to stand up for yourself,
Right.
even against me.
Right.
Uh, I also want to talk about something else that happened, which gets kind of interesting because of the uh, the authorship of the episode. Gates McFadden has come out talking about how she enjoyed Sub Rosa.
I am not responsible for Gate McFadden's hot flashes or her fetishes, man. That is just not my thing.
Let me read the quote from the episode, from the interview. When I saw Sub Rosa's script, I was like, "You are kidding me." Patrick hated it. He was like, "This is absurd and all." And when you read
Patrick
it,
was correct.
there are so many completely absurd things in it, and the more like it, a little gothic. I don't know, horror or something, but yeah, now I embrace it because I think it's hilarious. I mean, I learned to love it. To learn to love the green-eyed orgasm that Crusher has. I mean, what doesn't happen every day? Green-eyed orgasm. So I think there's a possibility that Gates McFadden is basically saying, as the kids would say, she's having some cope. She gets told, that was a really dumb episode. Why didn't you stand up for yourself and say no? And not every actor thinks that they can, even actors who should know better. And Gates McFadden was pushed off the series, so she might have been less interested in testing her boundaries. I don't know.
Well, I mean, she should have said what Michael Caine said about Jaws 3.
You know, my mother has a really nice house.
Yeah. Well,
Although,
because the thing is, this not only is this the same kind of cope we get with Will Wheaton, who rebuilt his career on being Wesley just long enough that he could then turn around and say, "Stop calling me Wesley, because now I've got what I want out of you," and being a scumbag. But this is the same kind of cope that we get from Marina Sirtis, who has a pretty good career. She's been in a lot of things, but as I have mentioned before, famously went to a convention and made people very uncomfortable by basically bursting into tears and saying, "Thank you for making Star Trek good, so I didn't have to do dirty movies anymore."
well, I mean, you know the specific dirty movie in question, right?
Which one? There's three or four.
Well, there's a specific dirty movie she was referencing at that
I,
instance in the
I'm
convention.
assuming it's Death Wish 3.
It is Death Wish 3.
Yeah, the one where she
And
plays a non-specific person with a ethnic accent, and is forced to lay on a filthy mattress in a dirty soundstage while she is
oh,
raped by I'm sorry, I was gonna say whack jobs, but no, I have to use the grammatically correct Death
creeps.
Wish language. Creeps.
Creeps. But Joe. No. She wasn't on a mattress in a soundstage. He was outside in New York in
Right,
November. And
right,
she was not allowed to have a blanket between takes.
right. Because Michael
Nor was
Winter was special.
yes. Yes. And at that point in her career, she had done only that kind of acting work. And I don't have a problem with Marina Sirtis being like, "Oh, thank you, Star Trek people, for saving me from that being my career."
Sure.
Though I personally think her voice acting work is
Head and
is
shoulders better.
is better than her actual acting.
we we shouldn't remember Marina Sirtis for being Counselor Troy. We should remember Marina Sirtis for being Demona and for being the villainess in Mass Effect.
Matriarch Benezia.
See, you remember because you know that name. I don't.
Well, I mean, Mass Effect is such a great video game, and it has so many great elements of a
Tis.
sci-fi story, which makes me angry that there was fake news that came out that said they were wanting to make the story not for the video gamers. And the guy
Yeah.
who's the showrunner of the show has come out and said, "No one's had that discussion with me." If that
Yeah.
discussion were real, I would kind of think somebody would have told that to me.
Although that does this entire conversation has reminded me of something that I just found out, and I want your insights because you have some insiderness
I
about
do.
Hollyweird.
I do.
So Ty and I have been watching DS9, and over the
Yeah.
course of seasons, we're well into season 5 now. We're about
Mhm.
to watch some very good episodes. Ty hates the Bajorans. Fucking
Well,
loathes the Bajorans. I can't
I mean,
blame
you
her.
should. You
I
should.
can't blame her. But the thing is, she was trying to understand why are the Bajorans this stupid? Because Netta Visitor's not a bad actress.
No.
Given good material in specific episodes, there's a character there. But then if it's a Bajoran episode talking about Bajoranness, her intelligent quotient goes way down. So it's got
There
to
are
be the species.
there are several problems with how they structured the Bajorans.
Well, see,
One of
that's the thing is
those.
that I have answers about that. I went to Memory Alpha and did my own homework.
Hmm.
So, in the first, back in TNG, when they were originally conceived by Pilier and some other writers,
Hmm.
they were a stand-in. Current year politics, here we go, for Palestinians and Israelis and Kurds and other ethno groups in the Middle East
Yes.
dealing with Middle East problems.
Yes.
And I will say, as a person, that's already a bad idea, right? Then
Mhm.
they moved into DS9 and they said, well, yeah, but what if they were also Jews in the 40s?
And also Indian,
Which, yeah,
because
which, right.
the Bajoran religion is very much Indian
Well,
in character.
I'll get to part of that in a minute. But Armand Shimmerman totally was in favor of this. Imagine that the Jew playing a money-hungry alien was in favor of what he viewed as positive representation of the Jews
Well,
in a space thing.
Armin's relationship with the Ferengi is interesting because he viewed the
Right.
Ferengi as he originally acted them as an anti-Jewish stereotype. So he worked
So
very hard to make the Ferengi less of a stereotype.
and leaned into entirely different anti-Jewish stereotypes. I'm not saying that the Ferengi were good in their original outing, and I personally think the Ferengi are a bad character design overall because
Hmm.
it's really all about Gene's anti-capitalist leanings. But
But in DS9, the Ferengi make a very strong case that they're a better civilization than the Federation.
right, they also totally are sharp-eared, big-headed, large-eared, money grubbing Juden. It's ridiculous how easily they fell into tropes they claim not to be into. They're all about their Latinum. They want to get their Latinum and yours.
Hmm.
But we're talking about the Bajorans here.
Yes.
And then over the course of the series, as they had to continue filling out this race, they said, well, what if they're like 19th century Mexicans in the post-colonial revolution?
Which is a worse idea because most Americans don't understand those revolutions in Mexico.
Well, here's the thing. The reason I looked this up is because I was trying to explain to Ty why they were so upset. I said, Ty, you're from Northern Cali. Ty's like, yeah. And I'm like, how long you been there? She's like, 6 generations. I'm like, you ever live in SoCal? She's like, at one time. It's like, you know what SoCal is like? Yeah. You know what Mexicans are like in SoCal? And there's nothing wrong with Mexicans in SoCal, but what I mean is that in SoCal, closer to the border, you encounter more overt illegals and you encounter more cultural synergy, but also more cultural dissonance,
Hmm.
right? So, like in SoCal, they have bilingual signs, right? The regular signs say, don't cross this street because
Hmm.
traffic and so on. The Spanish version says, for the love of God, don't jaywalk,
Hmm.
right? And she's like, yeah. And when I said that the problem with the Bajorans, when you really look at it,
Hmm.
okay, is that it is a group of upper class, possibly white Hollywood elites writing stories for put upon ethnicities they don't understand, and then
Mhm.
making them deeply spiritual in that non-committal white girl wasted I'm not religious but I'm spiritual kind of way and do Pilates. You understand why the Bajorans don't work. They're a bad idea,
Mhm.
right? And then that's when I found the golden goose. I found the fucking egg that that made me realize something horrible.
Okay.
All the things we're talking about today, all the bad ideas in media that we've been arguing about today, have been there much longer because they were there in
Oh yeah.
DS9.
Oh yeah. No, they were there in the '90s. Was the first time
So
I was aware of it, and they did a toe dip in the '70s.
right.
It's just the deployment of these ideas and these strategies has become more sophisticated over time. The only benefit
So
we have in our current era is the people who are doing it don't know why they're doing it, so they're really bad at it.
so in the course of season 3, uh they polled. They said, what do fans think about DS9? And the general opinion was we don't like the Bajorans and Bajoran centric episodes. They're lame, right? So in
Mhm.
season 4, they de-emphasized the Bajorans. Ratings went
Right.
up. People liked the material. It was closer to a Star Trek. So they started pushing Bajorans in season 5 again, trying to say, no, guys, it's really important. The Bajorans have a major plot point to play. It's all about their joining the Federation. People didn't like it. And then in
Mhm.
season 6, so 6 years on after this push and pull of trying to get us to like the Bajorans, they finally got some response and said, oh yeah, I like the Bajoran episodes. Now, if you get 1 to 2 years of people saying, I like the Bajorans, and then you have 5 years of people saying, stop feeding me Bajorans, how the fuck can you be surprised that people preferred Mark Alermo's Gul Dukat?
Well, I mean, number one, Caldecott was played by an excellent actor,
Yes,
and
I'm being bombastic, but you see what I'm putting down.
the
How
actress they had playing the bad side of the Bajorans was nowhere near as good. That's not even fair.
whoa, are you are
I
you
that's
saying
not
are you
even fair.
saying
That's like
yeah, I was gonna say, are you saying Nurse Ratchet's not good? She's very good.
Kai Wynn as a character was not as good as Caldecott.
Yes, that is true.
Gul Dukat is a Shakespearean character, writ large. And
Right.
I don't know if he was originally intended to be that way, but very clearly the actor assigned to be Gul Dukat knew that he was Richard as Gul Dukat.
Oh, Mark Lermo is a treasure.
Yes.
Here's the you know that euphemism that I hate, right? Everyone thinks they're the hero of their own story, right?
Mhm.
Mark Lermo took that and actually applied it, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't a artificial, I'm telling you that they're just misunderstood. Okay? And he didn't approach it like Gul Dukat was misunderstood, right? He
Mhm.
just said, I'm gonna play Gul Dukat like Gul Dukat's the hero.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like,
Mhm.
but he's the villain, right? It's like, yeah, but I'm gonna play him like he's the hero. He thinks he's the hero and he acts like it. And it's like, no, it works. It really, really works when you actually apply it
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
intended.
So I think there was a certain spirit at the time
Yeah,
that they wanted to do representation and things like that. They came up with all these ideas of allegories that the Bajorians were supposed to be,
yeah,
but it didn't work. But it was the trend going on at the time, and they kept trying to make it work. There were several
right.
problems with the Bajorans as a story plot point. Problem number one is if you have stories focused on the Bajorans becoming a part of the Federation, then you have to get into the sauce of what becoming part of the Federation means. And Star Trek gets very weird when you do that. Like the process of joining the Federation, it's how you make the sausage. Nobody wants to see how the sausage is Second, the allegories didn't work, and there were aspects of the allegories that. So, like the mestizos, who are the most prominent part of Mexican, Latin American ethnic groups that we see in the United States. Those were not a prominent part of those ethnicities in the 19th century. Uh, the revolution and cultural forces that happened in the late 19th and early 20th century led to them becoming much more prominent part of Mexican society. So if you're playing the Bajorans that way and trying to emulate parts of that revolutionary environment, it doesn't work because it's not the world building doesn't support that. And likewise, if you're making them they're a minority in a refugee camp, that doesn't work because those minorities all have a longer cultural history with touchstones. It just doesn't work. But the big issue is we want the Cardassians to be unremittent space fascists, and they're
Right.
space fascists because they need raw materials and resources.
Yeah.
Even though every other society in Star Trek basically has technology to hand wave the resources problem. Even the Klingons, who don't do it that often, they hand wave it when it just becomes too much of a waste of their time to do that, and warriors should
Right.
focus on more important things. So the world building of the Cardassians as an antagonist doesn't work. And so that element in turn doesn't make the occupation of Bajor work.
Well, it's unfortunate too because occasionally it does work.
It
There's
does on
a there's
occasion.
a there's a storyline where the Federation is going to hand the damaged Cardassian Union some industrial replicators, right? And
Hmm?
this is a big peace action. This is like, look, man, we're gonna give you some gear. We don't share our gear with anybody. We're gonna give you our gear to get you back on your feet, right?
Hmm?
Right? And the Maquis steal them. And Maquis
Hmm?
steal them because the Maquis are basically saying you would give these tools of survival to an enemy before you give them to your friends if your friends said we don't want to be in your union anymore,
Hmm?
right? Now you can see the hypocrisy because it's like you say you're not pirates, but you just committed a piracy, and you just committed a piracy because you're the ones who said you wanted to go it alone, right?
I mean, the
But
Maquis, they have their own interesting case. They're a more
right,
interesting part of the
but
world.
that's what I'm saying. It's like it works in that story, right? But then yes, at broad, a lot of the Cardassian and by extension the Bajoran story doesn't work,
Because the world building is half baked.
right?
And and
And there's another.
Gene never ever ever focused on strong world building.
Well,
It was
supposedly,
you're on a wagon train to the stars and you're seeing the many planet of hats.
he gave, presumably just before he died, he had been told about the Bajorans and he had approved of the direction they were going. But who the fuck can know? Because it's a third party story told about a man who's dead who was famously indecisive until the night before.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another facet to this boggle, which again is in Memory Alpha. It's right there in text. They in development when they were making the Bajorans, they said they wanted to make the Bajorans complicated and in some ways aggravating for the Federation, right? Because the Bajorans were going to be strong-willed and assertive and spiritual, and their opinions were not going to necessarily be agreeable. They were going to reintroduce that combative, argumentative element that Star Trek had lost because Gene didn't want it, right? So here's a comparison for you. If there's a bunch of Klingons
Mm-hmm.
and they're fucking around where they're not supposed to be fucking around and they're drinking, right? And you walk up and you tell those Klingons to move along and they tell you to fuck off and die, You say, well, then you better give me one of them beers. And when they're like, why would I give you a beer? It's like, because after I kick your ass, I'm going to be thirsty. They will laugh, and then they will invite you to drink their beer while they move on. And right, that is, even though the Klingons themselves are very Mongol or Asiatic inspired, that's like a very Scottish thing, right? They'll get right up in your face to the edge of a conflict, and if you don't blink, they respect you. That's not the Bajorans. The Bajorans are a race of Karens, right? You tell them no, so they say, can I see your manager? So you send them to the manager, so they say, how dare you? I'm a Bajoran. Don't you give a shit? It's like, no, I don't give a shit that you're Bajoran. But they will fucking talk your ear off about how important it is. And then they will go home and they will say, why won't the prophets help me out? As if Jesus is their personal fucking wingman. It is the worst. They are the worst. Somehow, I am hard pressed to decide if the Kazon or the Bajorans are worse. I honestly can't tell.
So I think this is the show today.
Oh
We're
wow.
definitely gonna need to figure out how to get Ayrton at least in here, because I think we need Ayrton's energy.
I mean, it's very much like that episode where Death Glock kicked out Toki and it's just a stupid thing from my computer. Did you know that my browser has lost connection to my camera? I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's an episode of Death Clock where they kick out Toki and Murderface, and they make like 3 albums, and they can't publish any of them because they're too happy and they work too well. They need something fat, something stupid, something disagreeable.
Mm-hmm.
we we need our Music Man at the very least to be like only partially here making stupid jokes and smoking cigars. Although
Absolutely.
he did, if you didn't see, Ayrton actually was about recently. He passed our oh shit, my computer.
Uh-oh. We have lost Rune. Uh, so I guess it's gonna be good night, everybody. And sweet.